Have you ever wondered what the world looked like before borders existed? Imagine standing on a hillside nearly 15,000 years ago. A river winds through the valley below. Endless grasslands stretch beyond the horizon, and there are no fences, checkpoints, or signs claiming ownership. You could walk for days in any direction without crossing a national boundary or proving where you belonged. For almost 290,000 years of human history, that was simply normal. Countries did not exist. Nations did not exist. There were only people and the land they traveled across. Yet within the last few thousand years, humanity created one of the most influential ideas ever imagined. An idea so powerful that billions of people now organize their entire lives around it. So how did we invent countries? The answer begins much earlier than most people expect. For the overwhelming majority of human history, asking someone where they were from would not have produced the name of a place. The answer would have been a family, a clan, or a small community. For nearly 96% of our existence, humans lived in mobile groups of roughly 20 to 50 relatives. They followed food, seasons, and wildlife rather than fixed territories. Home was never a location. Home was the people you traveled with. That lifestyle depended on something remarkably simple. Everyone knew everyone else. Relationships were personal. Trust was built face to face, and social order came naturally because every member of the group understood each person's history, reputation, and responsibilities. Communities survived through familiarity rather than written rules. One fascinating lesson from this is that humans were designed to connect deeply, not endlessly. Strong communities grow from genuine relationships, reminding us that meaningful bonds are often more valuable than large numbers. Even in today's digital world, a few trusted people can matter far more than thousands of distant acquaintances. Comment 1. If you believe real relationships are still more important than social status or popularity, this idea became much clearer in 1992. When evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar proposed what is now known as Dunbar's number. His research suggested that the human brain can comfortably maintain about 150 stable relationships. Within that limit, people can remember friendships, conflicts, favors, alliances, and family connections. Communities can function through reputation, conversation, and mutual accountability. Once a population grows beyond that threshold, everything changes. No one can personally keep track of hundreds of lives. You cannot remember every promise, every disagreement, or every partnership. The social system that worked for small bands begins to fail. Humanity suddenly needed something larger than personal relationships to unite strangers. That challenge explains why every modern nation, from Iceland to India, relies on institutions instead of personal familiarity. Countries exist because our minds were never designed to manage societies containing millions or even billions of people. Nations became the solution to a biological limitation. Sometimes our greatest inventions are not signs of superiority, but clever adaptations to our own weaknesses. Recognizing our limits has often pushed humanity toward its greatest achievements. Progress frequently begins by solving problems our ancestors never expected to face, but none of this happened overnight. The first major turning point was surprisingly ordinary. People stopped wandering. Around 12,500 BC, in the region known today as the Levant, the Natufian culture made an extraordinary decision. Instead of constantly following food sources, they began living in permanent settlements. Archaeologists uncovered stone houses, storage pits, grinding tools, and carefully organized cemeteries, showing these communities remained in one place throughout the year. The remarkable part is that they had not yet invented farming. They chose to settle before agriculture transformed human civilization. That decision permanently changed the relationship between people and the land beneath their feet. For nomadic groups, land was something to move through. For settled communities, land became something to improve, protect, and pass down. They built homes, stored food, and buried loved ones there. Once generations of ancestors rested beneath the soil, that place became far more than useful ground. It became part of their identity. Archaeologist Colin Renfrew argued that ancient burial monuments across Europe likely served another purpose as well. They announced ownership. Instead of fences or signs, graves silently declared that this land belonged to the descendants of those buried there. In many ways, humanity's earliest territorial markers were not walls at all. They were cemeteries. That small change carried enormous consequences. Before laws, governments, or armies claimed land, memory did. The places where people honored their ancestors gradually became places they felt responsible to defend. Identity often begins not with ownership, but with belonging. The first seed of a country may not have been a king issuing commands. It may have been a family choosing one place to call home forever. Still, villages and cemeteries alone could not unite thousands of strangers. Humanity needed another breakthrough, something powerful enough to connect people who had never met. That breakthrough may have appeared at Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Beginning in 1995, archaeologist Klaus Schmidt uncovered enormous stone pillars carved with animals and arranged in giant ceremonial circles dating back to around 9500 BC. These monuments were built 6,000 years before Stonehenge and 7,000 years before the pyramids. Even more surprising, the builders were not farmers. They were hunter-gatherers arriving from scattered communities across the region. They gathered not because they shared villages, but because they shared beliefs. Schmidt proposed an idea that transformed archaeology. Instead of cities creating religion, perhaps religion created cities. People first gathered for ceremonies, rituals, and shared meaning. Permanent settlements may have formed afterward. That possibility changes the story entirely. Humans discovered they could cooperate with complete strangers simply by believing in the same ideas. Shared faith became the first technology capable of extending cooperation beyond family and close friends. Every society still depends on that principle today. Whether expressed through religion, national identity, or common values, shared stories allow millions of strangers to trust one another enough to live together peacefully. Long before passports connected citizens, belief connected communities. Shared purpose has always been one of humanity's greatest strengths. People are willing to accomplish extraordinary things when they believe they are part of something larger than themselves. The stories we share often shape history as much as the tools we invent. Yet belief alone could not create a state. To build governments, another invention changed everything. That invention was grain. Around 10,000 BC, people across the Fertile Crescent began domesticating wheat and barley. While farming obviously increased food production, political scientist James C. Scott argued that grain transformed civilization for a different reason entirely. Grain could be counted. Unlike crops hidden underground, wheat ripened in open fields where everyone could estimate the harvest. It could be measured, stored, divided, transported, and most importantly, taxed. Scott argued that the earliest states formed around this simple reality. Governments emerged because grain allowed rulers to collect resources systematically. Once food could be counted, officials could organize labor, build institutions, and support permanent administrations. Borders, laws, armies, and bureaucracies eventually followed because they protected and managed those taxable harvests. It is astonishing to realize that many symbols of modern nations may trace part of their origin back to a crop growing in a field. Sometimes history turns not on dramatic battles, but on surprisingly practical inventions that quietly reshape the world. Before grain could be collected and taxed, communities needed protection. That is why some of humanity's earliest large construction projects were walls. Around 8000 BC, the ancient settlement of Jericho surrounded itself with an enormous stone wall and a massive tower unlike anything seen before. Whether those structures defended against enemies, floods, or even prevented workers from leaving, they revealed something much more important. Organizing thousands of days of labor required planning, leadership, food distribution, and coordination. Those are the foundations of administration, and administration is the framework upon which every future state would be built. As societies accumulated food, they also accumulated power. Archaeologists discovered one of the world's oldest granaries in the Jordan Valley, dating back roughly 11,000 years. Elevated floors protected precious grain from moisture and pests, preserving harvests for future use. But whoever controlled those food stores controlled survival itself. The ability to decide who received grain gradually became the ability to influence entire communities. Researchers Kent Flannery and Joyce Marcus described how early hunter-gatherer societies naturally resisted inequality. If someone tried to dominate others or declare themselves a permanent leader, the rest of the group often mocked, ignored, or isolated them until their ambition faded. Those social pressures kept communities remarkably equal for tens of thousands of years. Eventually, however, certain individuals discovered ways to bypass those limits. Some claimed unique connections with the gods. Others controlled valuable food reserves. Temporary influence slowly became inherited privilege. Privilege evolved into kingship, and kingship eventually produced kingdoms. History reminds us that power rarely appears overnight. It grows through small advantages that become permanent over time. Understanding those patterns helps us recognize how leadership can either serve communities or slowly separate itself from them. Comment too if this changes the way you think about where political power truly began. Even kingdoms remained relatively small until cities transformed everything. Around 3500 BC, the Mesopotamian settlement of Uruk expanded into something humanity had never experienced before. By approximately 3100 BC, tens of thousands of people lived within a single urban center. A city of that size could no longer function through memory or personal reputation alone. The solution was revolutionary. People invented writing. Contrary to popular imagination, writing did not first emerge to record poetry, philosophy, or religious teachings. The oldest known written tablets from Uruk were administrative documents. They recorded grain deliveries, worker rations, livestock inventories, and economic transactions. More than 85% of the earliest surviving texts concern accounting rather than storytelling. Scholar Denise Schmant-Besserat traced this development back even further to simple clay tokens used for counting goods thousands of years earlier. Those counting tools gradually evolved into symbols pressed into clay tablets. Humanity's earliest written words were likely numbers recording barley rather than grand declarations about kings or gods. Alongside writing appeared standardized clay bowls distributed to workers. Archaeologists believe these identical containers measured daily grain rations with remarkable consistency. This was far more than generosity. It represented one of history's earliest payroll systems, supported by organized government administration. Civilizations often appear glamorous when viewed through monuments and legends, but their survival usually depended on careful record-keeping and ordinary logistics. Behind every great achievement stood countless people, quietly managing details that made everything else possible. With writing came another milestone that feels strikingly familiar today: documented borders. Around 2500 BC, two Sumerian city-states, Lagash and Umma, fought over fertile farmland. Their dispute produced one of the earliest recorded political boundaries in history. Kings surveyed the land, placed inscribed stone markers, and documented agreements defining where one territory ended and the other began. When those agreements were violated, war followed. Victory was celebrated with monuments depicting disciplined soldiers and defeated enemies, while warning future generations not to cross the established boundary. Long before modern passports, people were already defending invisible lines with remarkable determination. Yet even formal borders did not fully create countries. A true nation required something much deeper. People inside those boundaries needed to believe they belonged together, despite never meeting one another. Anthropologist Robert Carneiro proposed one explanation for how this happened. His theory argued that geography often forced communities together. Fertile valleys surrounded by deserts, mountains, or oceans offered little room for defeated populations to escape. Rather than migrating elsewhere after losing conflicts, they were absorbed into expanding political systems. Village merged with village. Chiefdom absorbed chiefdom. Over time, states emerged. Archaeological discoveries suggest violent competition over territory existed long before maps existed. Ancient cemeteries in Sudan reveal repeated episodes of organized violence dating back roughly 13,000 years. Similar discoveries near Kenya's Lake Turkana uncovered evidence of massacres occurring around 10,000 years ago. These tragedies remind us that humans fought over valuable land thousands of years before anyone officially declared borders. The border was invented later. Competition for resources came first. Egypt provides another remarkable example. Around 3100 BC, King Narmer united Upper and Lower Egypt beneath one ruler, creating one of history's earliest large political entities. Force, diplomacy, and centralized authority combined to produce a recognizable kingdom. Yet history also shows another path. In the Indus Valley, enormous cities flourished between 2600 and 1900 BC, with carefully planned streets, standardized bricks, sophisticated drainage systems, and consistent systems of weights and measures. Surprisingly, archaeologists have found little evidence of powerful kings, monumental palaces, or giant royal tombs. Some scholars suggest this civilization may have operated through cooperation among merchants and ritual leaders rather than military rulers. If that interpretation proves correct, it reveals something inspiring. Large, organized societies do not always require conquerors. Sometimes shared standards, mutual trust, and economic cooperation can unite people just as effectively as armies. One of history's quiet lessons is that civilization depends as much on cooperation as conquest. Stable systems often outlast dramatic victories because they encourage people to work together instead of merely obeying. Despite these impressive civilizations, they still were not countries in the modern sense. Ancient kingdoms united territory under rulers, but today's nations expect ordinary citizens themselves to feel connected to one another. That emotional transformation arrived surprisingly late. Legal historian Henry Maine observed that human societies gradually shifted from being organized by family relationships to being organized by territory and legal obligations. Instead of asking who your ancestors were, societies increasingly asked where you lived and what responsibilities you shared with others living there. The modern idea of sovereignty emerged during the 16th and 17th centuries, but many historians identify October 24th, 1648, as a defining moment. The Peace of Westphalia established principles allowing individual states to govern their own affairs without outside interference. Much of today's international system still follows those foundations. Considering that our species has existed for roughly 300,000 years, the modern nation-state is astonishingly young. In the timeline of humanity, it appeared only moments ago, but legal systems alone cannot inspire loyalty. That emotional connection developed through culture. Political scientist Benedict Anderson described nations as imagined communities. Citizens never meet the overwhelming majority of their fellow countrymen, yet they still feel connected through shared identity. According to Anderson, the printing press helped create that feeling. Newspapers and books published in local languages allowed millions of strangers to consume the same information simultaneously. Shared stories gradually produced shared identities. Ernest Gellner expanded this idea by arguing that nationalism did not simply awaken ancient nations. Instead, nationalism actively created them through education, standardized languages, and common cultural symbols. Italy offers an extraordinary illustration. When the country unified in 1861, only a tiny percentage of its people spoke standard Italian. Most communicated through regional dialects. The state first created political unity and then spent generations building a common national identity afterward. Countries are not sustained by geography alone. They survive because people continuously agree to participate in the same shared story. Every anthem, classroom lesson, holiday, and public symbol quietly reinforces that agreement. Comment 0. If you've ever realized that a nation is built as much through shared ideas as through physical borders, the French Revolution pushed this concept even further by declaring that sovereignty belonged to the nation rather than a monarch. Citizens no longer served only a king. They served an idea. Military service became a responsibility owed to the nation itself, transforming patriotism into one of history's most powerful political forces. Modern borders, however, were not always shaped by the people living inside them. In 1916, British and French officials divided much of the former Ottoman Empire into new territories, whose boundaries eventually became countries such as Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. Similar decisions during the Berlin Conference divided Africa without consulting African leaders, creating borders that often ignored ethnic and cultural realities. When many colonies later gained independence, they largely preserved those inherited boundaries because changing them threatened even greater instability. Many of today's nations are therefore much younger than they appear. The process has never truly ended. The United Nations counted only 51 member states in 1945. Today, there are 193. South Sudan became the newest widely recognized independent country in 2011 after an overwhelming referendum supported separation from Sudan. Humanity is still creating countries, and the map continues to evolve. So how did humans invent countries? They did it step by step. They settled permanently and attached their identity to particular places. They cultivated grain, creating surplus that could be stored, measured, and taxed. They built walls to protect resources and populations. They invented writing and bureaucracy to organize societies far larger than any individual could personally know. They expanded through conflict, developed legal sovereignty, nurtured national identity, and finally drew borders that transformed ideas into political reality. Many historians believe some version of this process was almost inevitable. Once agriculture increased populations beyond the limits of personal relationships, humanity needed new ways to cooperate. Geography influenced the outcome. Technology accelerated it. Culture gave it meaning. Yet the specific flags, borders, and country names that fill today's maps were never guaranteed. Those emerged through countless accidents of history, migration, conquest, negotiation, and chance. French thinker Ernest Renan perhaps offered the most profound insight of all. He argued that a nation exists because its people continue choosing, day after day, to believe in it. Shared memories bind citizens together, but so does selective forgetting. Every country carries stories of conflict, sacrifice, injustice, and triumph. Remaining united often requires remembering enough to preserve identity, while leaving enough behind to move forward together. Tonight, when you return home, you'll likely think nothing of crossing into your own country or living within its borders. Yet that nation is younger than agriculture, younger than pottery, and even younger than humanity's oldest companion, the domestic dog. For nearly all of human existence, countries simply did not exist. They emerged because someone planted grain, someone counted the harvest, someone organized workers, someone built walls, someone kept records, and eventually, someone convinced millions of strangers that they belonged to the same community. That, more than anything else, is what a country truly is. Not merely a place on a map, but one of humanity's most remarkable shared stories. An idea powerful enough that billions of people continue believing in it every single day.